welcome to the Human Body Podcast. Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of Popping Parkinson's Podcast, where we'll be talking about, you guessed it, Parkinson's. Let's get into it and kick it off with our first guest, James Parkinson, who we invented time travel for, just to get on the show. James, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Who was that? Do you hear ghosts clapping? Who are you talking to?
It's a sound effect of people, not ghosts, and we're doing a radio show.
Radio?
It was invented after you died. Why did you just...
Died?
James, please tell us about yourself.
Well, I was born in 1755 in London, England.
You look great for your age, and you're an Aries.
I am the oldest of 5 children, born to my parents, John and Mary.
What do you do in your free time?
Committing regicide, plotting to murder King George III with guns.
Oh, how edgy. Anyways, so tell us about your professional life.
Well, I'm a political activist, a popular medical writer, a scholarly medical contributor, a highly appreciated parish doctor, a prominent amateur chemist, a devoted madhouse doctor, and a renowned paleontologist.
Quite the Renaissance man. Tell us about your medical career.
Well, I started practicing in 1784 when I was approved by the City of London Corporation as a surgeon.
Tell us about the discovery of Parkinson's.
Yes. Paralysis agitans, the shaking palsy. Are you sure you don't want me to talk more about my acclaimed work? You know I'm a renowned paleontologist, an insatiable collector of fossils, minerals, and shells.
Well, people don't really know you for that anymore, mostly just the disease.
Oh. Well... I first described this disease as the involuntary tremulous motion with lessened muscular power. In parts, not in action, and even when supported, with a propensity to bend the trunk forward and to pass from walking to a running pace. The senses and intellects being uninjured. I observed this in 6 patients. However, 3 of these were just on the street and 1 was only from a distance.
What causes this?
I theorize the disease develops because of a problem in the brain's medulla region.
Interesting. So how do you treat it then?
Well, no one really ever paid attention to this disease and no cures have been found. But treatments we used included arsenic, morphine, hemlock, and cannabis.
Gee, bro, no.
Well, what do you do?
That's not a question I know the answer to, but what a good segue into introducing our next guest, Dr. Doc, a medical doctor who specializes in the treatment of Parkinson's.
Hi, nice to be here.
Can you please explain the modern, far less medieval treatment of Parkinson's?
I'd be happy to. The treatment for Parkinson's vary with the age group and the stage at which the disease has progressed. In younger patients that are diagnosed with the disease, they are prescribed with a synthetic dopamine agonist, which imitates the effects of dopamine in the brain. In our elder patients, they are usually prescribed with levodopa or L-dopa, which is an amino acid that is converted into a dopamine once it reaches the brain. However, when it comes to the later stages of Parkinson's, L-dopa side effects can increase. This would include dyskinesis or involuntary movement. At the point, subthalamic nucleus deep brain surgery is done to implant electrodes into the brain in order to ease the side effects of dyskinesia.
What do you think of that, James?
Sounds a little extra, TBH.
Okay. Can you tell us more about the mechanisms for how this happens, Doctor?
Yeah, so Parkinson's is caused by the breakdown of neurons that...
No. I'm pretty sure it's due to lesions on the cervical spinal cord. Or demons.
That produce dopamine, hence why we would prescribe either a synthetic version of L-dopa to our patients. The lack of dopamine in Parkinson's patients causes the key symptoms that are associated with the disease, such as slow, rigid movements and tremor.
Demons.
Okay. So how common was it in your time?
Well, since I was the only one studying it, one of the pioneering doctors, statistics were scarce on the number of people. with the disease, but considering how I casually met 3 of my 6 cases on the street, I would not consider it rare.
What about now, doctor?
Well, sadly, about 7 to 10 million people worldwide have Parkinson's, and approximately 1 million people here in the States.
Gee, Rover Cripes!
Who does this normally affect? Any age more than others?
Well, from the cases I wrote in my book, an essay on the shaking palsy, please come to my book signing this Saturday. All 6 of the cases I studied were of men ranging from the age of 50 to 72.
Wow. Yeah, so basically the disease usually affected those who were older, around 60 and up, and it's 1.5 times more common in men than women.
Snails. I never realized that.
So our understanding of genetics inheritance has changed a lot since James's time. Doc, can you tell us about how this disease can be inherited?
Yeah, well, there are 2 ways that this disease can be inherited, and it all depends on which gene is altered. If the LRRK2 or the SNCA gene is involved, then the disease is inherited in an autosomal dominant pattern, which means that 1 copy of an altered gene is enough to cause Parkinson's. Now, the LRRK2 gene is responsible for...
Gosh all Potomac. Autosomal what now?
Alright, the autosomal dominant pattern is one of the many ways our DNA or deoxyribonucleic acid can be altered to create mutations. And in this case...
What?
Just Google it. I'm sick of you. Anyways, the LRRK2 gene makes dardarin, which is a protein that is important for transmitting signals to help build a cell structural framework. The SNCA gene is responsible for making alpha-synuclein, which is critical for controlling the stop and start of a voluntary and involuntary movements. Now, if the PARK7, PINK1, or PRKN gene is involved, Parkinson's disease is inherited in an autosomal recessive pattern, or when 2 copies of the gene in each cell are altered.
Darn it, now you're just talking gibberish.
So, doctor, is there a cure for it yet?
No.
By Saint Boogert and all the saints on the back door of purgatory. All this time and you still haven't found a cure?
Well, did you?
I found it! What more did you want from me?
Well, maybe an accurate cause to why people tremor instead of blaming it on lesions in the spinal cord.
Villain, I did thy mother.
Don't talk about my mother like that. And also, your old-fashioned suggestion that we can medicate the disease by cutting people in the neck and putting leeches on their back.
Well, why don't I treat you for Parkinson's the old-fashioned way?
I think that's a good place to end things. Thanks for tuning in for this episode. We'll see you next week.